Well, hello, and I want to open by saying thank you to Mr. Jeff Parker, the CEO of MARTA, for joining me for today's Jobs for Georgia virtual press conference. And thanks to all of the reporters from every corner of Georgia who are listening in. We will have some time at the end of this press conference to answer a couple questions, and I'm excited about the conversation ahead of us about how the American Jobs Plan, as well as the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, mean good jobs for Georgia and economic growth in every corner of our state. So to kick things off, I want to say welcome to Jeff Parker as he comes now to share a few words.
Thank you, Senator. We at MARTA appreciate all of your support for public transportation and making sure that that not only people can access jobs and how public transportation really does that in an equitable way, but also the fact that MARTA and the transit industry is such a huge generator of jobs in our economy and throughout Georgia. So it's important to recognize that we're really providing two things: access to jobs, but also building upon our important economy. And that's not just here in the MARTA jurisdiction in Metro Atlanta, but it's throughout Georgia, where there are jobs that support this important transportation and transit infrastructure. So thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you so much for your remarks. And I want to ask, if I might, a couple of questions of you, Jeff. First of all, why is MARTA so excited about support for the American Jobs Plan? What kind of jobs does this investment create directly and indirectly for Georgians in the metropolitan Atlanta area and beyond? And what are some of the unexpected industries besides places like tech and manufacturing facilities that you think will experience job growth when we make federal investments in Atlanta's public transportation systems?
Yeah, so there's really so many ways that I could answer that question, but let me just focus on a few of them. First of all, we at MARTA employ a little over 4,000 employees, great paying jobs, people who provide great service to our customers, and do it in a way that we can make sure that throughout the region, in all parts of the MARTA jurisdiction, that we're making sure people can thrive and access jobs. But we also know here in Atlanta that the city, the metropolitan area, is growing incredibly fast. And we've got to support the growth of our transportation and in particular our transit infrastructure to make sure that we can continue to provide access to jobs, to make sure that people can thrive within our jurisdiction. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to build projects. We're going to build, like is a funded project through the Federal Transit Administration, our Summer Hill BRT, which will provide access for people along in the Summer Hill neighborhood, along Capitol Avenue, to get to jobs downtown. And we look at improvements on Campbellton Road and Clifton Corridor and the Beltline to improve transportation, as well as improvements in Clayton County to make sure that we can improve the access of our citizens into where the best high-paying jobs are in order for them to do it. And those construction projects are going to create jobs as well, and indirectly create other jobs, and that's going to happen all over our region. So we're really excited about that.
Well, thank you so much. And I can tell that you could say a whole lot more about that. And we'll be talking in the days ahead. But here is what Georgia transportation equity leaders know. They know that further investment in Georgia's rural, suburban, and urban public transportation systems creates jobs in Georgia. Tell me this: how will MARTA use investment in the American Jobs Plan to revitalize Georgia's transportation infrastructure and create jobs across the state?
Sure. So great examples of that are the projects that we're planning, and how the citizens of Metro Atlanta have stepped up to create local funding sources to expand transit. So both the citizens in the city of Atlanta and Clayton County, and we've got plans to do more of that in Fulton and DeKalb, have raised funds to provide local support for transportation and transit projects. And so the American Jobs Plan really creates and expands the already existing federal programs through the Federal Transit Administration so that we can match those local dollars and leverage them to get federal funds. And we want to make sure here at MARTA that we're advancing projects that are going to be competitive across our country and are going to maximize the local investment and leverage as much money as we can through the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Improvement Grant Program. We're really excited about that. And I think that what that will end up doing is not just change the landscape here in Atlanta, but if you think about what happens throughout this state, we've got manufacturing jobs for the bus and rail markets throughout this state. If you think about building a train, we need flooring on a train, and we're in in Northwest Georgia, we're bringing flooring in. We're building lighting systems and HVAC systems and the couplers that connect the two trains together. All of this equipment that will ultimately be used to expand our service, much of it is being built here in Georgia. And it's not just about MARTA's projects, although they're important to us and vitally important to the growth of the region, but the transit industry, transit agencies in California and New York City and in the Midwest are using our local companies here in Georgia to deliver their projects as well.
Great. So thank you so much for that, Jeff. And thanks again to everybody for joining us today. Before I open the floor for questions, I want to underscore once more how important the American Jobs Plan and the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act of 2021 is for Georgia. The U.S. Innovation and Competition Act of 2021 is a first step in passing the American Jobs Plan. It is critical bipartisan legislation we need right now to ensure Georgia's and America's manufacturing industries can continue to innovate and lead, and that will spur much needed job growth. It's also legislation that will make great strides to strengthen our domestic side production of semiconductors, which are important to automakers in Georgia, like Kia. I was happy to meet earlier this week with Kia Motors leadership as we navigate this semiconductor shortage that they're dealing with right now. And I look forward to getting down to the West Point facility soon. As soon as I learned how the global semiconductor shortage would affect Georgia manufacturing jobs, I called for a swift federal investigation to mend this supply chain issue as soon as possible. The West Point facility had to suspend production today because of this very issue. And so the provision I authored and championed to be included in the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act of 2021 tackles this issue directly by making sure our country prioritizes semiconductor R&D. And so Senator Ossoff and I also recently sent a letter to expedite the passage of this vital legislation to finally boost American semiconductor manufacturing. That way we can end this ongoing shortage that is directly harming our workers and our businesses in Georgia. The U.S. Innovation and Competition Act would invest $52 billion in the federal creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors for American program, or CHIPS program, to address the United States semiconductor shortage. This keeps our network of American supply chain network resilient and strong, preventing future shortages of essential materials and goods. Let's be clear, we cannot delay when Georgia jobs are on the line. The rest of the American Jobs Plan is more good news for Georgia jobs, for families, for job seekers, for business owners, and employers alike. As Mr. Parker demonstrated, making these crucial investments will spur and support jobs and job creation across the state by investing in revitalizing the state's transportation infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about transit, rail, ports, housing, broadband, and much more. As we're coming out of this pandemic and looking now to the future, what better time than now to invest in America? As I've been saying of late, America needs a home improvement project to help create jobs and fix what's broken in our communities and in our democracy. And the American Jobs Plan is a major step in the right direction. It will create good paying local jobs, strengthen Georgia's skilled workforce, and uplift hardworking families and the dignity of work along the way. And so I'm glad that we're taking a first step and getting it across the line by working to pass the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act. And with that, I want to open the floor for a couple of questions.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. The first question comes to us from Grace Donnelly at the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Grace, I'm requesting to unmute you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Warnock.
Hi,
and
Grace.
Mr. Parker.
Hi, Grace.
So you talked about the strength of the automotive industry in Georgia, and it seems like the state and the metro area really have an opportunity to become a national leader in the electric vehicle space as well. What do you hope to see from this bill or from future legislation to support growth in that industry and the transition to mobility?
Well, I am excited about the prospects of Georgia continuing to lead in the electric vehicle space, which is why we got involved immediately when we learned that there was a problem going on with the SKI plant in Commerce, Georgia. It was incredibly important that that plant stay open, providing thousands of good Georgia jobs. And as we look to the future, we know that we will be moving increasingly away from combustible engines to electricity. And this is the future. And so we have what we need in Georgia. We have the universities, we have the land, we have the technology. We certainly have the passion and commitment to lead in this front, and I'm going to be doing everything I can to put the kinds of provisions we need in the American Jobs Plan to make sure that Georgia continues to lead, which, by the way, advances the president's own commitment to building out the kind of electric infrastructure for electric cars. And I'm just grateful that Georgia is leading the way.
Senator, could I just mention that I spend a lot of time with my colleagues from around the country, and I will tell you that conversion of electric buses is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And to be honest, the biggest challenge that we have as an industry is finding the funds to begin that transition from the fleets that we have today to a more modern electric bus fleet that we know we need to have to be able to be a sustainable economy. And so MARTA has just received its first electric bus thanks to a grant from the Federal Transit Administration, and we're on the very beginning of that journey. And so without the American Jobs Plan, this industry, quite frankly, is not going to be able to transfer from combustion engines on our bus system to electric buses that we know we need to have. And clearly it's about sustainability, but it's also about jobs. We employ thousands of Amalgamated Transit Union 732 members, many of whom maintain our bus fleet. as we transition to electric buses, we're gonna improve their job skills. We're gonna make sure that they're able to maintain the vehicles and change their technology and improve their ability to work with this advanced technology. So we're excited about this.
Absolutely. And recently I was down in Fort Valley, Georgia, where the Bluebird bus company that's been in Georgia for decades is leading the way in our country with greening our yellow school buses. And so we want to support this effort, which is why I've introduced the Clean Commute for Kids Act, where we are providing the kinds of investments in greening not only our public bus fleet, but also our school buses.
Right.
The next question comes to us from Emil at WABE. You can go ahead.
Hi, Senator Warnock. A quick question for you. What are some of the most important things you can do as a lawmaker to encourage Georgia businesses to hire?
Oh, well, I think that there are business leaders who are already reaching out. I've been moving out around the state of Georgia, talking to business leaders. I think there's a disconnect in some ways between the folks who need workers and the folks who are looking for jobs. And so one of the things that I'm looking to do is to figure out how we can connect those two things. But as I'm talking to workers, they are certainly interested in getting back to work. And I think all of us really are pushing our way out of this pandemic. And so we'll have some fits and starts, but I think the American Jobs Plan will add fuel to that effort. And we can get the Georgia economy roaring as soon as possible.
If Mr. Parker has nothing to add there, we're going to hand it over to Tia Mitchell at the HAC. You can go ahead, Tia. This is our final question.
Hi, Senator Warnock and Mr. Parker. I was wondering, Senator Warnock, if you could talk a little bit about the aspect of the Innovation Act that could create technology hubs across the country and what you think that might mean for Atlanta.
Thank you so much. Earlier today, I was talking with the president of Georgia Tech, which, as you know, is a leading research university in our country. And so when you look at a region where we live in with great universities like Georgia Tech and others, the investments in the American Jobs Plan, I think, recognizes that, looks to invest in it, and maximize and leverage the possibilities there, not only for the region, but for the American economy in general. This is the way of the future. And as a member of the Commerce Committee, I'm well positioned to make sure that we get the kinds of investments that we need in our region. And you can bet that every day I'm working hard to make sure that that happens.
Excellent. Thank you all for your time. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to our office. Thank you to Senator Warnock and Mr. Parker. That is all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Senator Warnock.